Hello everyone and welcome back. In this lesson we're going to be covering fuzzing. So fuzzing is the first step when creating a buffer overflow exploit. What we're essentially doing is sending a bunch of code or bytes to a program to see if it's properly sanitized. So a program that's not properly sanitized is going to crash if we send it too many bytes. So that's what we're going to try to do today. We're going to download a vulnerable program called vulnserver, and then we're just going to fuzz it. So I'm going to go ahead and have you go out to Google. And the first thing we're going to download here is vulnserver. So this will work on most Windows machines. I'm running Windows 10. And it's imperative that you're on a Windows machine for this lesson because most of the buffer overflow in the course and on the exam, it's going to be Windows based. So that's what we're going to cover today. Let's go ahead and just click on this first one at the gray corner. And if we scroll down here where it says download, there's a link. So if we just click on that link, and then all you have to do is click here for your attachment. It's going to be a zip file. I've already got it downloaded. So once you have it downloaded, let's just go ahead and go into your folder. So this is what it should look like here, vulnserver.exe. It's very basic. All we're going to do is open that up, and it should look something along the lines of this. So from there, the other program that we need to download, it's called Immunity Debugger. So let's go ahead and go back to Google. And this is what we're looking for, immunity.inc. If we click on this first link here, we're going to download it right here. So you have a registration screen. You can pretty much put whatever you want in here. And I'm just using fake emails, fake address, fake company. So you can hit download, and then it'll automatically start the download. Just go ahead and download that, run the setup. It's really straightforward. There's nothing special you have to click on. And go ahead and get that saved. You don't have to open that right now, but that will be something we're going to be using later in the lesson. So from here, once you have that done, if you need to, go ahead and pause the video. We're going to go into our Kali machine, and we're going to write a fuzzing script, and we're going to write that fuzzing script in Python. So this is kind of what we talked about in the introduction video, that you needed to be comfortable with Python. If you find yourself getting lost in this video, there are resources out there to learn Python. There are resources here at INE, and I've found some good resources as well at Cybrary. So if you need a refresher course, I would go look for that first, because now we're going to start getting a little code heavy. Okay, so let's go ahead and just type in, I'm going to call this fuzzer.py. Okay, and as always, for our Python script, we're going to put user bin Python at the top. And then I'm just going to import a couple things here. I'm importing socket so we can connect, and importing sys. So we're going to define a buffer as just A. And we're going to set a counter equal to 100. So that way we start at 100 and we just keep going up in iterations. So in the iterations, I want to go up. Today is going to be 30. So if the length of buffer is less than or equal to 30, then we're going to go ahead and append buffer by counter. So we're going to go up by, it's eventually going to be by 200. So we'll start at 100 and then we're going to go by 200 here. So next thing we'll add in is counter equals counter plus 200. So that allows us to go up in iterations. So what we're doing is if we send 100 bytes and 100 bytes doesn't break the program, then we're going to send 300 bytes and 500 bytes, then 700 bytes. And I think it goes up to 5900. I believe that's 30 iterations. So we have to define our sockets. So for string and buffer, we can say something here. We can just say fuzzing vuln server with the amount of bytes we're sending, right? And we can make those bytes the length of our string. So then it should produce 100, 300, 500, etc. And then we have to connect to vuln server. So we have to make that connection. So we're going to define our s variable as socket.socket. And we're going to make it socket.afinet. This is our IPv4, correct? And then our socket.sockstream, which is our port. So then we're just going to make another variable, just call it connect. We're going to call it s.connect. And then this is where we need to know the IP of our machine that's running vuln server. So mine is sitting at 192.168.15.230. And vuln server by default runs on port 9999. Okay, so for the next one, we're going to send a message to vuln server. And we're going to send this trun message here. And we'll cover that here in a second as to why that's what we're sending. And then we're just going to put in our string. And finally, we're going to close it. So to go over this again, we have a Python script. We're defining buffer as A. We're defining counter as 100. And we're using 30 iterations to start at 100 here and go up by 200 at a time. So what we're doing then is we're going to connect to our machine on IPv4 and port 9999. Same thing as here. And we're just going to send this message. We're going to send trun with this here, and then we're going to add our string to the end of it. And that's it. So we're just going to keep doing that. We're just sending 100 A's, 300 A's, 500 A's until we break the program. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We're going to hit yes here. Save it as fuzzer.py. The first thing we should do when we're writing a script like that, I always chmod, and then I'm going to put fuzzer.py here. So that way it's ready to go. It's executable. So before we run this fuzzer script, let's just connect to our vuln server. So if we use netcat like we learned in the last lesson, we can go to our machine on port 9999. And we got to add the NV here, right? So this is the proper syntax. We hit enter. And we have connected to vuln server. So you see welcome to vulnerable server, enter help for help. So if we type in help, you see there's a bunch of commands here. So vuln server has a few different vulnerabilities. Today we're going to practice buffer overflow, which I already know sits at the trun vulnerability here, this trun line. So that's why we're putting in trun in the code, in case you were curious. So we're just going to hit exit. And that's it. So if we bring up, you can see, if we bring up vuln server here, you can see that we had a connection from us, and then we closed the connection. So what I want to do now is I just want to execute the fuzzer and see what happens. Looks like I had a typo in my code here. Let's see what we did wrong. Okay, so forgot some syntax. So we need a colon. And if you caught that when I was doing it, good job. Okay, let's try it again now. Oops. Okay, so we just sent the fuzz down the line, And I got this here, this vulnserver.exe has stopped working, so we successfully crashed the program. It should completely close out now. Good, so somewhere between 1 and 5,900 bytes, this just crashed. In a perfect world, it would have stopped where it crashed, so say if it actually crashed at 1,500, then it would have stopped and given us a little bit more information on and kind of not had to use so many bytes here. I have a feeling it didn't take all 5,900 bytes, but for this program it doesn't work that way, so you'll find some where it will. So now let's go ahead and just reopen Vuln Server, and we're going to fuzz it again, but what we're going to do is we're going to open Immunity Debugger and we're going to watch what happens. So with Immunity Debugger open, let's go ahead and go to File, and we're going to hit Attach. And we're going to look for Vuln Server here. So I'm just going to sort by name. And here's Vuln Server right here. I'm attaching that. So if we cover some things from our last video really quick, we see we have our ESP, this is our top, right? And we have our EBP, which is our bottom. And then we have the EIP, which is our pointer. So the EIP is of our most concern, right? We're trying to overwrite this here with a return address so we can point to malicious code. So right now we're about to send a bunch of 41s, a bunch of A's in, and we're trying to overwrite the EIP. And that's our only goal right now. So we're going to eventually get down to finding the specific placement of the EIP, but right now we just want to know that we can overwrite it. So our first step here is all we have to do is hit play. In the corner we're hit as paused right now. So we hit play. You now see that it's running. So if we go back into our Kali machine and we just run the same fuzzer again, you should see that your Immunity Debugger starts blinking. We have an access violation when executing all the 41s. And our EIP has been overwritten. So good, we have overwritten the EIP. We know that we have access to this pointer. We just got to find how to get to the pointer. And we're going to cover that in the next few lessons. We're going to go small step by small step until we get to the end here. So that's it for this lesson. I thank you for joining me. My name is Heath Adams, and I'll see you next time.